Hello and welcome, episode 20 of Pre-War Dreams. I'm Joe, and today just kind of want to give some thoughts, give some ideas. Obviously, last week was the National and was not there, but I saw a ton of content. I want to thank a lot of the YouTube community for having some great content, kind of giving me, an overview and everything of what happened at the National. I have some thoughts about that. But I'm on location today, just kind of at a location TBD. So I just wanted to give some thoughts. I had some time here. I want to show you a little view of where I'm at right now. So I'm just kind of at a little spot here, and I'm sitting in my car and I start hearing the water, and it's getting me a little bit serene, so I thought, why not make a video? Last week was the National, and I could run through a list of all kinds of names that did some really great content on it. But I appreciate living vicariously through a lot in the community as far as the National. So I went to the Cleveland National last year, and it was an awesome experience. And I went to Strongsville in April. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to see, quite frankly, which one I liked better. And I was at the National for a day, and like everyone said in the community, the breadth and the depth of what's at the National is second to none. You are not going to see the volume of cards that you see anywhere, probably at any show, as you do the National. And that was really, really awesome. I had a really specific game plan going into the National, certain tables I wanted to see, and that made it very time effective for me because I knew I only had a day. And then I went to Strongsville in April, and Strongsville doesn't have anywhere near the amount of tables, probably 5 times less. There's probably 800 tables at the National. There's probably 150, 160 at Strongsville. But Strongsville was definitely more concentrated on what I was looking for. From a price perspective, and a cost perspective, Strongsville is a no-brainer for me. Between food, hotel, everything else, transportation, I mean, Strongsville probably cost me a couple $100. I looked at Chicago, trying to go for 2 days. I was going to go there Thursday, spend Thursday night, go to the show Friday, go back home Friday. And it was going to cost me in upwards of $800 to $1,000. And I didn't want to pay that. So Strongsville is going to be the show for me going forward. But I do appreciate all the content creators giving me another view of the National and seeing where it's at. What I saw at the National were 2 or 3 things that I really took from it. that a lot of YouTubers have commented on. I think that the cost of the National is getting out of hand. And that's on three fronts. I think the cost to go to the National from a transportation and hotel perspective is borderline outrageous. I think that the way that, or what I saw at the National from tables, I think right now, while the hobby is extremely strong, I think the dealers are gouging us collectors. I think the dealers, in a lot of ways, are putting prices on cards. That's a double-edged sword. I think the dealers are gouging collectors based on the grades that they have on cards and going 10, 20, 30% over comps on that. And then turning around and having lower graded cards with eye appeal, my appeal, however you want to term it. And then gouging those as well. And it's becoming a very tricky situation from a collector's point of view as far as what we can collect, how we can collect, and what is fiscally responsible to collect. That's concerning because, as you well know, 20 episodes into my journey, I'm a hobby minimalist in a lot of ways. And I'm a minimalist on a number of fronts. I'm a minimalist on the number of cards I bring into my collection. I'm a minimalist in the way I collect and who I collect. But I'm also a minimalist because fiscally, there are a lot of responsibilities we have in our real lives, and to be able to spend what I saw at the National and the prices, outrageous amounts for some cards, it's a little concerning. I have some cards that I want to get and bring into my collection, and I know deep in my heart that there's certain cards I'm just not probably going to ever get, and I'm gonna have to find a creative way or a lesser card to bring into my collection just because the prices are getting a little out of control. I thought it was interesting, a really good YouTuber, Rick, Vintage Oddball Cards, talked a lot about it on the Misfit channel Wednesday night. He flew all the way to Chicago, walked around for 3.5 days, and did not buy a card. And then the last day sat and, filled out some sets and did some stuff like that. And I think a lot of it, and he was very kind and modest, kind of how he presented it. But think Rick, and I'm not trying to put words into his mouth, I think Rick feels kind of the way I feel, which is you're too expensive. Dealers and the prices on these cards are too expensive. And it's a little concerning. I think going forward, for as particular as I am about buying certain cards, I'm now going to have to be even more selective in what I buy, who I buy from. I think that you're seeing so much of the hobby now being this quick flip, quick trying to make a buck atmosphere in the hobby. And I think that a lot of that is getting a lot of these dealers to the point where they're raising their prices to a point where the general collector almost is getting phased out because of these flippers, repackers, investment firms coming in to buy alternative assets and have, it seems like, bottomless pockets. And I'm not, I understand that I'm in a free enterprise world, and I understand that people are trying to make a living, and don't get me wrong, I completely respect that. But at the same time too, it's hard being someone on the collecting side that knows that every card they're potentially buying is at such a high premium that I'm not saying it's not worth it to have the card, but I'm also saying that there's a point where these prices and a leveling of the playing field needs to occur. I really think that Strongsville could be a very defining moment next year in the hobby. I think that it's going to be interesting to see over the next 7 or 8 months, as maybe I'm kind of on a sideline. I'm really interested to see what collectors pay for certain cards. I'm interested to see the pricing on some cards, because kind of like a fishing analogy, I feel like I'm a fish with 2 hooks in my mouth. I got a hook in my mouth that's getting gouged on eye appeal, and I'm getting hooked on the other side because of a grade on a card by dealers. And that's tough to negotiate. I heard a lot of comments from the National talking about how dealers are, telling collectors, oh, I'm this much into this, or oh, I can't go any lower. This is my bottom price. This is as low as I can go. And I guess my question as a collector is, well, if I go to a dealer's table and the dealer has a price tag, let's say I have $1,000 on a card. And the comps in that card are 850. And I'm willing to set maybe a new comp at 900. And then a dealer comes back to me and says, no, I need 950 on it. That's as low as I can go. Is it worth for the dealer to go back home with that card and not sell it? There's going to be a breaking point, I feel like, in the hobby with this. And I really hope it happens before Strongsville next year. I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe Strongsville next year is a tipping point. Maybe coming up, the Burbank or a Dallas show or Philly show or Shriners in October. Maybe something happens there that makes a tipping point. But I feel like right now as a collector, I'm getting a little nudged and pushed out of the hobby. I think that there has to be a little give and take. And right now I feel like all the give is being done by collectors. And I didn't see a whole heck of a lot of give on the dealer side. That's concerning. Now, I did see some videos where some collectors talked about how dealers worked with them, and that's good. I mean, that's awesome. But through the videos that I saw, when you have 700 or 800 tables at a national, and different people in the community only talk about the same 5 or 10 dealers that are willing to work with us collectors, that's a very small percentage. I don't know what's going to happen maybe in the next few years of the hobby. I think that it affects me in a way because I'm starting to get in a point of my collecting journey where I'm starting to go after some bigger cards. I'm getting at a point in my hobby journey where I'm not just buying a card to own a certain, just card. I want specific cards. And I know that that's going to cost me a little bit as I go through this journey. But I feel like at the exponential rate that right now the hobby's going at for some of these cards, I feel like maybe the next 3 to 5 years, I'm going to get totally priced out of certain cards and certain players. I'm going to have to do kind of a, I don't want to say reassessment, but I have to start looking at some of the stuff logically in the hobby and really just focusing on kind of what I've been doing, a couple cards. And hey, I feel like, I'm kind of a contrarian to the hobby. I think a lot of hobbyists want to try to get, as many cards as they can for their collection. I'm obviously on the opposite end. I'm only trying to get a few cards. But I'm concerned that the few cards I want to get You know, what happens 2 or 3 years when I'm completely shut out of maybe acquiring those cards? You know that I'm pretty steadfast. I'm not going to the National in Chicago the next couple of years. So my next opportunity probably for a Nationals 2028, which is fine. I can still go to Strongsville. I haven't bought a card since Strongsville. I look a lot on eBay and I look a lot on different sites like that for cards. Where the hobby is on different sites that you can buy cards like eBay, and where the hobby is from the dealer perspective at shows, are two different worlds right now, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I went to a small card show a month and a half ago, and at Strongsville I bought 56 Jackie, centered, 2.5. I saw a 56 Jackie, it was 6 weeks ago at a show, off-centered left to right and off-centered top to bottom. It was graded a 1.5. Rounded corners on all four corners, which isn't a big deal to me, but it was off-centered probably 70-30, I would say, top to bottom and left to right. And the dealer wanted $700 for it, which roughly is 40% over what I bought the centered copy for in April. I'm going to be interested to see, with what's going on in the hobby and a lot of these dealers, there's going to come a breaking point. Yes, the hobby's hot right now. Yes, there's money still flowing into it. But at what point, I feel like, do collectors take back the hobby a little bit? At what point do we tell dealers that they're a little out of bounds with their pricing? I feel that there is a little, well, it's not a little gap. I feel that there's a widening gap between what the value of certain cards are and what we're expected to pay as collectors. And that gap needs to narrow pretty quickly. I know this seems like a negative video, and I apologize, and if you're still here, I hope I'm not as negative sounding as I feel like I've been. But I just think that, for me, a small fish in a big pond like this I feel like in a lot of ways in this hobby, I feel like all I can do is leave this big pond and go to an ocean. And that's very concerning. I've probably pulled back, probably had a list of about 70 cards that I wanted. I would say after the National last year in Cleveland, I've probably pulled back to about 30 or 35 cards that I want. And I feel like if there's not a lot of change, I'm going to have to contract even more. I would love in the comments to hear from the community, maybe on some stuff that maybe we can do, or things that we as a community and as collectors can do. Not saying for us to get the advantage, because I don't think that's ever going to really happen, but to get it a little bit more into our favor and not have dealers, in my opinion, control everything in